Alright, some things we need to do. We've got an update function here for the snake. Looks like we already got the load texture thing in there. Hopefully you've got your artwork done. Now to update the snake, really to update the game, we're going to have to put in a clock at some point. And like the game will run on ticks based on the speed or whatever the speed of the snake. So like in one of the games of Snake I played, it gets faster every level. Does that seem right?
Yeah. It only does it every time they pick up an egg or an object.
Okay, so every time you get an egg you go faster?
Yeah.
We could do it either way, but ultimately the game runs on a clock, and so however often it ticks can be determined by the speed of the snake. I don't think there's any other factors, but we need to set up a clock, and so we'll need to do that before update gets very far. Looks like we can draw the snake and make sure it loads properly. So let's just see if what we have is working. So I'm going to go to game state. In our level 1 constructor we can add snake. Wait, I need to declare the snake in the header file. There we go, level 1. We'll need to include snake up at the top. We've got our snake pointer. So let's go back to the constructor and hold control and click on your constructor if you want to. That takes you right to it. And somewhere, I would say after we create the background there, we can initialize the snake. And we'll step down into level 1 update. And somewhere in here we can update and draw the snake. Right now there is no update, so we won't bother with that. We'll just draw it. Where do we draw it? Top of the what?
The texture. Where we have it set up for the background texture.
Right here?
Yeah. Before that though.
Before this?
Yeah.
Right here.
Yeah, sure.
Okay, this is bad. If I draw the snake here, and then I draw the background, it will cover up the snake.
Okay. Alright.
It would be the last thing you draw, wouldn't it?
Probably.
Okay.
Right before we present, we'll draw the snake. And draw gets the renderer. Now where do I expect this snake to appear? I haven't set the position yet, so that needs to be done. If I remember correctly, we said we would set that in the level constructor because the level really determines where the snake starts. not sure where I was going with that. Position, rectangle, speed. Okay, so position we will want to update somewhere, but just to see if the snake is drawing, we can put the rectangle. I don't know, we'll just put it somewhere on the screen for the moment, and we'll come back and change it later. Trying to get caught back up with where we were. We set the rectangle, we set the texture, set our velocity vector. I believe that should draw it. Let's just see what happens. Error, all is lost. Oh, because we used the wrong constructor. When we create the snake, we have to pass it the renderer. So go back to your level 1 constructor and make sure you pass the renderer in. There he is. Oh, what a handsome snake he is, just hiding like a snake. Was everyone else successful?
No.
I'm going to turn my mouse back on because I want my mouse. But mine's right here, so I may have a bad color choice, but he is there. If I want to change the color of these squares of my grid, I should be able to do that somewhere. If you want to change the color so that you have better contrast, I would do that. I'm gonna go with a lighter gray. That's better. Now I can see him. Alright, we want to lock the snake to a square. He's always on one square or another, never in between. At least starting off. I know we said we wanted smooth motion, but we may have to get there later. But I think starting off that is going to be more difficult as far as good gameplay goes. So, snake, where's my snake? Snake instructor. We'll need to set it to a current square, but that will probably be done in the level. And then when we update the snake, we'll update the rectangle based on the current square. And we may not need a position vector. So to set the snake to a square, I'm going to scrap this right now. I'm going to say the snake current square equals grid, and we'll just pick a square for him to start on. If we wanted him in the top left corner, we would do something like 5, 5. And that should be up towards the top left corner. And then in snake update, we can set his position based on this grid square. So snake CPP update, snake, no, not snake, rectangle dot x equals current square dot x. Sorry, rec dot x. There we go. And if we've done this correctly, he should be up on square 5, 5, and he should be centered on it instead of some weird position.
Mine sounds.
Yours is not working.
I have the image inside the file. It's not showing up.
Did you use a get error?
No, so that doesn't show anything.
When you load the texture, do you have a get error message there? Okay, I didn't call snake update, so that's why my guy's way over here. So in game state CPP, in level 1, before we draw, we will update. Hey, it should be just like that. Should be on 5, 5. Alright, I'm going to pause for a second. Okay, in update, we want to move the snake as well. And to do that, we want to link up all of the squares in the grid so that we can move from current square to the next square, that sort of thing. To link up the grid, we'll need to do that here where we build all the squares. So I'm in the level 1 constructor. Okay, in this double for loop, just to review, we create a square from our class. We give it a position. We mark off some of these as walls. So yeah, create the outer walls and create obstacle walls in here. And then I'm going to run another double for loop. And we're going to tie every grid square to the squares around it. And I wanted to do it in this for loop, but if you try to tie the square that you're currently making to the one below it, the one below it doesn't exist yet, and you would get an error. So I think it's going to be necessary to write another set of for loops. So basically it will look the same as this. In fact, you can just copy that if you want to. My computer's being weird. Copy that. All right, and for each square, now we have to think about this. If I'm on the outer square, I can't link to the one above it. Like if I'm starting in the top left corner, I can't link to the one to the left or the one above it, because why? If I'm up here, I want to tie all these squares together. This one's linked to that one, this one's tied to this one, so on, right? If I'm starting here, I cannot link to this or that, right? There's nothing there. You will get an error, seg fault, null pointer, something like that. So how do we handle that? I want to link all of these systematically so that I can do it no matter what size the grid is, and obviously I don't want to type it in for every single square. So we're going to run a double for loop, but how do we handle this outside? You could do that.
That's what I was gonna say, make an object null, just have.
You do an if statement stating I don't know, what would your if statement be?
Would it be null?
What? Would what be null? There's nothing there. What I think might be better is to start here instead of here. And for every square we link, we take that square and link back.
Could you just set it, if it's equal to this wall? Because technically all of the around the outside is set to this wall.
That's another way of doing it. That would work. Do that? Okay. So, if grid ij is wall, well, let's just say if it's not a wall, might be useful to make a pointer here, so I don't have to keep typing grid bracket bracket I, J. Now we just type in. You see what I'm doing there? I'm just making a quick shortcut for my own convenience. Okay, so in down equals grid I, J. How do I link to the one below it? Huh? I is our X, J is our Y, rows and columns. We don't want to bump I up. We don't want to change it. We want to say J plus 1. That will give us the Y. See, IJ is where we are. We want to go to the one below it. Give J a plus 1. I think. I plus 1. And J will stay the same. I minus 1. All right, so what are down, right, left, and up?
The first down should be up.
First down, this should be down, this should be up.
Yeah.
I don't know why I wrote down again, sorry. What are these? What is down, right, left, and up? Do you remember? Let's go to our square class. They're square pointers. Inside the square class, we have square pointers that we declared up, right, left, and down. This is a linked list. Before we did linked list where we had one link, just links to the guy in front of it. Now we have a linked list where it links to the 4 around it. So that's what we're doing here. We're just tying all our links together. Okay, if we've done that correctly, our snake should now be able to move down, right, left, and up. So let's try that. Go down to level 1 here. We're already getting input in the level, so we can continue handling all of our input from here, or we could, rescan the keyboard in Snake Update and do the input there. I think to rescan it in Snake would probably be more conventional, because we're going to be accessing what would normally be private variables. But in another way, this is a little more organized in a way, because all of our inputs in one place. So there are different ways of doing this. Kind of depends on your style. I think I'm going to go with what we have here and just keep all my input in one place. So should Snake run on WASD or arrow keys? What? You play Snake left-handed?
You can do both of them, okay?
Oh, you want to make life hard.
Just
Okay. All right. We'll do WASD keys. Scan code _ W. That's not a W. W. And we could, it wouldn't be too hard to put both of them in there. Say key W, and you can just copy that. And then OR it. Change the W to, W should be up, so then it would work either way. Oh, and either word key. Key has to be there. Now, our snake's not running on a clock, so this is basically, we're going to push up, and he's going to fly up, or we're going to push down, he's going to fly down. He's going to move around the grid, but it won't be automatic, it will just be on command for the moment. So let's make sure that he is actually linked to the grid, our squares are linked together, and our input works. That's what we will learn from this. So snake current square equals current square up. Do you follow that? We're saying whatever square he's on is now going to be whatever square is above the current square. Simple enough? This is a cool thing about pointers. And we'll just have to do that for all of the directions. So key, I'm going to paste in there, and put S. Or key down. And we'll put in basically the same code, but instead of going up, we're going down. A for left, or left, one more. I think, yeah, I am almost certain this will work, but it's going to be so fast that your snake's just going to disappear. Yeah, we don't have a delta time in there. I'm going to run it just to see if it works at all, but I think the snake is just going to disappear.
Yeah, that's what.
Oh, he didn't quite disappear. You can see he's really, really fast. That crashed because there's no square and we haven't accounted for it hitting a wall yet. But that's cool. That works. Our grid is linked. In snake update, we should kill the snake if he hits a wall. So we got collision detection here. We'll need to check for collision with the egg, and we'll need to check for collision with the wall. We'll put the wall in, we'll come back and do the egg after we have an egg. So how do we do this? Someone tell me what to write. Collision with the wall.
Oh.
How would I know if the snake has hit a wall?
Position would be
It's
more past.
We're not doing position. What are we working with? Working with the grid, which is what's a grid made of? How do we know what square the snake is on? It's not null.
You're going to use the link list, right?
We are using the link list, but it doesn't matter that it is a link list. The fact that it's a link list is irrelevant in this context. It's really simple. If the current square equals or is a wall, if the square we're on is a wall, then we have hit a wall, right?
Yes.
Simple. And then we can just call die or whatever. Well, we could write a function to kill the snake, but I think the snake.
Yeah, we had to do it alive.
Okay, the snake will die if he hits a wall or he hits himself. We'll have to come back and put that in. Okay, but you said alive was false. I still think he should like fade out or something. We'll have to go back and hinge all of our input on whether or not he's alive. So he stops moving. And then we could write a die function where he like fades out. I mean, you could write all the code in here if you wanted to. I don't know. We'll come back to that. Fade away. Spins out?
Yeah, like spins in a circle and then fades out.
Okay. Alright, we'll come back to that. If this is going to work, we'll have to go back to level here. And these four inputs that control our snake need to only happen if the snake is alive. Now my game should not crash if I hit the wall.
Where'd you put that at, I'm sorry?
Of just these four
Oh, okay, I see.
four controls for the snake. This only happens if the snake is alive. And that way when he hits a wall, we lose control and the player will not be able to control the snake anymore.
That works.
So it shouldn't crash, it should just freeze.
Like when you hit the wall, he just stays right.
Yeah, he should just be stuck there because now our input no longer works. And we can't, it won't read that input that tries to move it into a square that doesn't exist. Alright, we good?
So for my snake CPP, for some reason it's saying rec is inaccessible. Never in the update.
Well, it usually means if you go to your snake header file, snake H, are you inheriting from object publicly?
Oh, yes, ma'am.
And then in object is a rectangle public.
Yes.
But it's saying it's inaccessible? Okay. Okay, to implement a clock, I'm going to go to gamestate.h. I think every game state, or every level needs a clock, not necessarily every game state. But our game state does have a general update, doesn't it? Base update, and we can update the clock there and it would update in every level. So I say we put it there. So in game state, static float called delta and a static float called current. These will be our clock variables. We'll move over to the source file. Go up to the very top where we initialize our static variables and we'll set these guys to 0. Float, game state, delta 0, float, game state, current equals 0. And then in our base update, we can say delta equals current minus SDL underscore get ticks and we'll put that in parentheses and then divide by 1,000 to get it in milliseconds. And then current equals SDL underscore get ticks. And what this does, current is going to hold the clock for the loop. You know, it's kind of like hitting the stopwatch. And then the next time around, our delta means change, would be whatever the stopwatch was set at minus the current time. So that will get the time elapsed, and then we convert that into milliseconds. That's what we're doing here. And then we reset our stopwatch for the next loop. So that's how that works. And then we use delta throughout the game anytime we need a clock. So let's check out our snake now. Level 1. Snake update. So we can pass delta in here. I'm trying to think, do we want to do that, or do we want to only call update if time has passed? I think we want to do it inside the snake, maybe. I don't know. It's one of those things where you kind of like, you can do it different ways, and it's not clear what the best way is of doing it until you do it wrong, and then you're like, dang, next time I'll do it right. So float, delta coming into update, and we'll have to change our update declaration. It's angry at me. This is not virtual. That's fine, that won't hurt anything, I don't think. Okay, so update has been modified to accept a float, that is delta. We can pass that in from our game state. And now we can move the snake based on the speed. Now we need a timer. Delta calculates the change in time for every loop. But we need some sort of timer that accumulates the time that has passed, and if enough time has passed, then we allow the snake to move. So snake.h let's put in a timer. Move timer equals 0. Back to update. Every update, our timer is going to accumulate delta time, so timer, or let's say move timer. Why doesn't it see this? Just being slow. Looks like everything's broken. Move timer equals, no, plus equals delta. I don't understand why it's angry. What the heck? I do something wrong, or is it just being dumb? Does anybody else have these errors?
It's just being done.
I'm gonna rebuild it. It builds, so I'm just assuming this is the wonderful program known as Visual Studio displaying its incompetence. Alright, that's right. Move timer plus equals delta. That's going to add delta to this timer every time the snake updates. And now if the move timer is greater than, let's just say 1 divided by speed, and that way as speed goes up, the snake will move faster. So if we have reached a certain point in time, we'll have to reset our move timer. And the snake can advance. Huh. And this is where it's going to get complicated. Because we would want everything we did in our input to happen here. But you kind of want to know where the player wants to go. So if I push up and it's not time to move, I still want that logged, like a request to move up when the snake does update.
So what do we do? Can we put our controls in that then?
We can put our controls in here, but we have to kind of store what the player pushed. We have to keep track of, if I tap up and it wasn't time to move, then when it is time to move, I still want the snake to go up. Now this is all going to happen within a few milliseconds, but you're going to have really bad gameplay if you don't account for that. Like you're going to tap up and the snake's not going to move, and then he's going to keep going straight, and you're going to be like, well, I pushed up, I died, I got cheated, the game sucks. You know what I'm saying? So, right now in our input we are setting the current square, which we knew we would have to change that because we know we want the snake to update on time, not on input. For that input though, instead of changing the current square, we will set a request square. And then when it's time for the snake to update, we will change the current square based on the requested square. Does that make sense? So like within the scope of delta here, or within the scope of our move timer, let's say it's 1 second. Every second the snake updates. That's going to be really slow, but bear with me. We could push several keys within that second. The last key that we pressed is going to be our requested square, and it's going to reset every time you press a key. And so when the snake does update, whatever that requested square is, that's the direction he's going to move. If we do it this way, it's also going to allow us to handle the case where the user presses the opposite direction they're going. Right? You can't double back when you're the snake. You have to go left or right, or keep going forward, but you can't go back the opposite direction you're moving. So with that request square, we'll be able to handle that as well, I think. There's like a million ways to do this, I'm sure, but that's the first one that came to me, so I say we go with it. To do that, we're going to go back to snake.h, and we'll add another square. I'm just going to call it the request square. and then we'll go to game state to level 1. And instead of changing the current square, we'll change the request square. Now when I put in input, I'm requesting to go a certain direction, but in update it will determine whether or not that's okay or if enough time has passed. Alright, so let's go back to update. Looks like IntelliSense fixed itself. So if enough time has passed, we set the move timer and we're going to change our current square equals the request square. That doesn't work. Doesn't keep the snake moving. We can reset the request square to null every loop, and then say if request square. If you want it to be more intuitive, you can say it does not equal null, but you don't have to write this part. Else current square equals, then now it depends on which direction we're going. If we're going up, it's going to be current square up, and so on. So we kind of need to know the direction we're moving. We said we were going to use angles. So that could tell us, that could keep track of which direction we're moving. So else if angle equals 0, that's 2 equals, then the current square equals the current square. Right? If the angle is 90, we're going up. This is also going to allow our snake to face the direction it's traveling. Got my angle braces, I messed What are we missing? 270? I'm all over the place. This is wrong. Current square equals current square left. Current square equals current square down. There. Alright, so if time has passed, reset the timer, check for input, otherwise move the snake based on the angle. Now where do we adjust the angle? We start off at 0, which means your snake should be drawn pointing to the right, facing the right. And then when we take the input, actually when we get the request, we're going to have to set the angle. So here, inside, if we have a request, then if request square equals current square right, angle equals 0. We'll have to set this for each direction. There's 2 equals right there. That's important. Already did up, down. Maybe that works. Snake is not moving. Something is wrong. I'm going to put these in parentheses just to make sure it does that math before it evaluates. That might be the problem. I'm going to put a little message here to make sure my timer's working properly. And I'm going to try this again. So I don't see any messages about my timer updating. Which means my timer's not working properly.
Vectors, to include the vectors.
No, we're not really working with vectors. I put them in there originally, but since we're locking it to the grid, I don't think we're gonna need them. So, I gotta debug this. Move timer is not updating. I'm gonna see out the move timer here. It's hard to use breakpoints when you're working with Delta because Delta time still accumulates while you're debugging, and that throws off all your values because while you're paused looking at your game, Delta's still running, and then on the next loop it'll say like Delta was 30 seconds or whatever. So sometimes it's better to use see out statements for things like this. No, let's say move timer equals move timer. Okay, so it's not going up at all. And I am adding delta to it here. So let's go see why delta is not going up. Well, we initialized it to 0, but in the level update, well, we never called that, did we? We took that out because I didn't want to update the mouse. Right, that's what's going on. I never called base update. I took that out for some reason earlier. I remember doing it, but it has to go in order for Delta to update. So make sure you have this line in there. Let's try again. The move timer is going negative. That's weird. Why is it negative? Is my math wrong? Yeah, but delta might be backwards. Maybe I wrote that backwards. Get the time, subtract the last time. That should give us positive delta. I think I just wrote that backwards. Maybe. Hey, it's working. The snake's even moving. How exciting! Huh? Let me try input. Let's push down. It moved down once. Moved down once, but did not. It's not continuing downward.
Mine's working, it's just really slow.
Well, yeah, it's on a 1 second update right now, so we'll change the speed and then that will change it. But mine starts off working right, but then it stops updating.
Mine's working right.
Yours is working right?
Mine's working just now, it wants it to continuously go. Like when you press it down, it just keeps going.
I don't think yours is working right.
No, that's fine. It's going down to 1, but if I keep tapping, it keeps going.
Yeah, that's what mine's doing. It should just continually go down. It also should change the angle of the snake. So angle here. think this has to come after all of our if statements. Maybe that will fix it, I don't know. That broke it. Maybe right here. After we set all of the angles, then we can change the current square, I think. If this doesn't work, I'm just gonna have to, okay, it's doing what it was, does it go down? Change the angle, change it the wrong way, but it's still not updating like it's supposed to.
Whenever I run mine, if I don't touch anything, it just goes across the screen by itself.
Right. Mine does the same thing. That's what it should do. Like when you start it off, it should just go across the grid all by itself. But for some reason, when I change direction, that screws all that up. So I've got to figure out why that's happening. I don't think these should be else ifs. I think this should just be an if. At least the first one, I think, should be an if. Maybe these others can be else ifs. Well, it's updating, it's just going the wrong way.
Mine's going diagonally.
What?
I took off all the else ifs and made them all ifs, so just the first one, and then they started going diagonally.
Yeah, okay, I'm gonna have to. So after we reset the current square, request square goes back to null. That's important. Okay, he's moving like he was. Push down. He's moving down. Push left. He's going left. The only problem is he's hopping a square. I don't like that, but it is moving. It is moving in the right direction now. So I've got a problem. Changing direction skips a square. I'll have to figure that bug out. But this is good. He's actually moving in the direction he's supposed to. He's moving on his own. He accepts input, changes direction accordingly. Hits a wall, he dies with the program. I don't think we need this, do we? If I'm setting the current square to the requested square and I change the angle, I don't need any of this. I think that was dumb to write that.
Should we put it, if he's a, when we should make the request square null in the update?
In the-
Or in game state, in the game state.
If you put it there, it will wipe it out every loop. It
I
won't.
think if I comment that out, it breaks time, like it doesn't move anymore.
If you comment these 4 lines out,
Yeah, it doesn't move anymore when I'm
that's why I had it on else. Yeah, dang it. Okay, so this line needs to go. That was a mistake. We do need to reset request to null. And then after all of that, we check our angle and we update our current square based on the angle. And the snake moves. And he moves in the direction. Mine is flipped. Like the direction moves with the keys and all, but up and down, like the way I drew my snake, is going the wrong direction. So I have an up and down, an angle in there wrong somewhere. It's just for graphics, but I would like to get that fixed at some point. Is anyone else where I am? Is this working for anyone else?
Mine's working, but when I go down, it goes in an angle instead of straight down.
That's probably a copy and paste error. If he's going at an angle, that means you're changing. Look at these if statements real close. Make sure all your braces are there. Really, this is what moves the snake, this right here. And this changes direction. So have right, up, left, and down. Fix it?
Yeah, I had a, what's it called, that? I had set the current, when we were doing the current state and the request state, which they equal to each other. I had one of those in the beginning.
Okay. Alright, that's good. This also only needs to happen if he's alive. So put that in there. And that way it won't crash if we hit a wall. I think that will stop him from crashing. Yeah, now it's not trying to move him to a square that doesn't exist, so that stops the crash. If you want, now you can change your speed. So we had that in snake.h. I had speed set to 1. So now if you want to double the speed, set it to 2. If you think double's too fast, it's a float, so you can go 1.5. Or, you know, So you can adjust it on a float value. That should speed it up quite a bit. And then we can adjust this variable every time he eats an egg if you want to. If it goes faster and faster, we could do like speed plus plus. So, want it to go really fast, or you can increment, 0.1. Oh man, he is getting it. This is a good game. I like that. Does anyone else? Is this working for anybody? Did you bump the speed up? All right. Let's move on with the egg because I think that's the easiest thing to do. Next. So right click, go to add, class, and the name of the class will be egg, derived from object, virtual destructor, and OK. We'll need the renderer egg doesn't do a whole lot. So
Should we make an update for it? So every time you eat the egg, it stretches out the snake?
that's more of an update to the snake.
Oh.
And we will have to do that in the snake update, but for the egg update, really it's just there or it's not. And so we may want like a generate function that's going to check out the map, see where the walls are, see where the snake is, and then decide where to place the next egg. So we may want a generate function for that. Or that might just be part of the level. I don't know. Not a whole lot to this guy at the moment, but you never know. Let's make this constructor. We at least need that. And we'll do texture equals image load. And hopefully it's just called egg PNG. And again, since it's common to have problems, I'm going to switch over to the CPP file. It's common to have problems when you're loading textures. So if you don't know how to do this, this is a good place to learn. If that texture is null, in other words, if it did not load correctly, tell me why. And you can call SDL underscore get error, and that will tell you either it didn't find it, which usually means you spelled this wrong, or you put your image in the wrong folder. So you'll get, could not find error, or sometimes the renderer is null. If you try to load images before you create the renderer, and it will tell you invalid renderer. There's a few other errors, but those are the most common too. That sets our texture. We'll need to set our rectangle. So our rectangle equals SDL rect. And right now we're running on 10 by 10. So you can say 0, 0, 10, 10. And if we look at objects, what else do we have? We have a name, we could set that. These we're not using since we have switched to the grid. But let's go ahead and set the name. It would be good to set the name in all of these. This program's really small enough that we probably don't need it, but if your programs get really big, it can be useful to have a name for debugging. Alright, so there's an egg. Now let's go back to the level. Oh, we need to draw. We need a draw function. Egg. Well, you can use default draw, can't it? Let's check out object's draw function. It's just going to draw it. The angle is irrelevant, so we can use object's draw function. No need to write our own for the egg. So with that in mind, let's go back to game state CPP. We'll cruise on down to level 1. And the constructor here, after we make the grid, after we make the snake, we just make one egg and then like move it around. When the snake hits it, it actually just moves. And the snake grows, but then the egg moves. So I think we only need one egg. Unless you wanted, multiple eggs on the map at once. So let's just start with one. So to get the egg, we'll have to include egg. So GameState.h, level 1. Egg pointer, and then in game state, gotta include it at the top. Then in level 1, CPP. After we make the snake, we can make the egg. Egg equals new egg. New egg, Oh, with the renderer. Don't use the base constructor. Use the one with the renderer. Should the egg have a current square?
Yes.
That way we know where to draw it?
Yeah.
Alright, I like that. So back to header file for egg. Include square. We'll set it to null for good measure. And then after we create the egg in level 1, we will give it a current square. And this is where we need a function. Either the function needs to belong to the egg and we pass it the level, or we pass it the grid, or it's a function that belongs to the level and we pass it the egg. I think it should belong to the level. You can do it either way. So if it belongs to the level, let's go to the header file here and declare a function void place egg. And then in the source file, after we create the egg, we will place the egg. And now, let's determine what place egg actually does. We've got a grid. The egg needs to appear on one of those squares, and the square cannot be a wall, and the square cannot be a snake. You know, if you think about it, the snake's body is really just a wall moving around behind it. We may actually code it that way. Okay, so to randomly place the egg somewhere on the map, we can run a random function. We're on a grid, so we've got X and Y. We'll have to randomize X and Y, and then check if it's a wall. If it's not a wall or a snake, we put it there. Easy enough. Brett, are you with us?
Yeah.
All right, how do we get a random number? Brand mod 50.
How are we gonna make sure it doesn't get put inside one of the walls?
Remember when I said, Brett, are you with us? And you said yes?
Oh, what he did mention was that snake as well.
This may need to happen over and over again, so I'm going to run this in a little loop. My Visual Studio is being weird. Okay, if the grid, come on. If the grid square that was randomly selected is a wall, no, it's not a wall, and later we'll have to come back in and say, or a snake. Then egg, current square, equals grid XY. And then to break the loop, we can just return. So does that work? It works. Okay, let's go draw the egg. We draw the snake. When do we draw the egg? Alfonso.
When do we draw the egg?
Yes.
When we set Oh. It's after you drop the snake, right?
I don't know. I do know, but I'm gonna pretend I don't. He said after we draw the snake. So, does the snake eat the egg, or does the egg eat the snake? I don't see it. Why is it not drawing?
We didn't set the position.
We didn't?
Yeah, we didn't set the position.
Right. Told y'all this didn't work. I hope that works.
Wait. Oh.
There it is. All right. Let's do collision detection.
Can you go back to place that real quick? Where you placed the spot?
We need to seed the randomizer. I forgot to do that. Okay, let's seed the randomizer so we can do that in main. This only happens once. We actually have a main. Isn't it weird how main has shrunk since you first started programming? We'll include time.h. And then it's srand time, no? And then your egg should appear in a different place every time. No. Why is it in the same spot?
Mine's not under the wall.
Mine's appearing in the same spot. Rebuild. It's in the same spot every time. Why is that? Is yours on a different spot?
Mine's in the spot, mine's in the wall.
If it's in the wall, you wrote your place egg function wrong. Anybody over there?
The same spot.
Every time?
You click, yeah, Tom.
Okay. Okay, because our game states are static, they are actually created before main runs. So if we seed the randomizer in main, the game state's already been created, so the first time the egg is placed, it would always appear in the same spot. But afterwards it wouldn't. It would be different every time. So to fix that, you include time.h at the top of level or game state.cpp, and then in the level 1 constructor,
Just put S.
you randomize it. It will only happen once, and that's fine. But it happens before we call place egg. And then the egg will be in a different spot every time you run the program. Alright, that's working. We need collision detection between the snake and the egg, and we can do that in Snake Update. Or we could do that in the level. You either have to pass the egg to the snake, or you do it in the level. The snake has to be updated though, it has to grow. So I'm thinking we'll pass the egg to the snake. I mean,
So we make a function with that, or we're just gonna do it right?
we'll make a function. The level has to move the egg if the snake eats it.
Yeah. And the snake has to grow one block or one square every time.
Maybe we'll just make a function for the snake to grow, but we'll actually check the collision inside the level, because the level has to move the egg, the snake has to grow. It affects everything, score goes up. So the collision will take place inside level. And we could do it different ways, but that's the way I think is going to be best. So, void, check, check egg. I don't want to write check collision of egg with snake, that's too long. We can see, we'll put a comment there. Sometimes those are useful. That's not what I wanted. There we go. So if snake current square equals eggs current square, snake needs to grow, and egg needs to be moved. We don't call that against egg though, we just call place egg. Well, let's write a grow function for the snake. Well, we have to call check egg, that's important. So in level 1 update, after we update the snake, we'll check the egg. Now let's write the algorithm to grow the snake. You ready, Fabian?
Yeah.
He's ready. I'm not. I have no idea what you're gonna do here. We can do a few things. So void row. Well, we can increase the speed. That'll be easy. We'll move the egg. So let's just see if that works. All is lost. Oh, because it's still running. One more time. I'm waiting. Is it actually getting faster? Are you guys even playing with me? No? Huh?
I think mine is the same.
Oh! This is a good game. I'll put this on Steam. Well, if you want more vicious speed increase, you can bump it up by 10. No, well, you'll know if it's working.
Does it feel like it's working?
Definitely. Is OBS on here? I need to get this streaming.
I got you all streaming tonight.
I think I'm kidding.
We'll take up a collection. We'll get a big prize pool going. We'll have a snake tournament.
You sent the picture on account and start streaming it.
There we go. Funding secured.